She said sorry 3 times before she even sat down. Sorry for being late. Sorry for dripping rain across his expensive floor. Sorry for limping through his doorway like she had any right to be there at all. What she didn't say, what she didn't know, was that Kwon Tae-jin had stopped listening after the first apology. Because he'd already noticed the limp, already calculated how much pain she was hiding, already decided that this girl, this stranger who'd stumbled into his world by accident, was either the answer to his problem or about to become his biggest one. And in his line of work, as the head of Seoul's most feared Mafia organization, those two things were often exactly the same. The elevator doors slid open, and Samira was already talking, already apologizing, already late. "I'm so sorry. The train stopped between stations, and I ran from Gangnam Station, but the rain made everything slippery, and I couldn't. I'm really sorry." She stepped into the room, water dripping from her jacket, her backpack heavy with textbooks she'd borrowed from the library, her left leg dragged just slightly as she moved forward. The man at the table hadn't moved. He sat perfectly still, hands folded in front of him, watching her the way people watch something they're trying to figure out. The apartment was too quiet, too big. The lights were dim except for the single lamp over the dining table where he sat. This wasn't right. Mrs. Bach had said she'd be tutoring a businessman's son, someone who needed help with economics for a university entrance exam. This man was no student. He looked about 34, maybe 35. Dark hair, dark eyes, wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. No watch, no jewelry, nothing that screamed wealth. But somehow, the entire room bent around him like he was the only thing in it that mattered. Then his eyes dropped. Just for a second. To her left leg. Samira's breath caught. She forced herself to stand straighter, forced the limp into stillness, even though her knee was screaming from the run through the rain. He looked back up at her face, said nothing, just gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, Zit." His voice was quiet, polite even, but it wasn't a request. Samira thought, "I need to leave." She thought, "I cannot afford to leave." She had 12,000 won left in her account. Rent was due in 8 days. Mrs. Baek had promised 80,000 won for tonight's session. Cash, no questions asked. She needed this. So she pulled out the chair and sat down. "I'm Samira Misangi," she said, trying to sound professional, trying to sound like she belonged here. "Mrs. Beck sent me. I understand you need help with macroeconomics." The man tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something underneath her words. "She did send you," he said slowly. "And you came." "Yes. Even though you're injured." "I'm not injured. You're limping." Samira's hands tightened around the strap of her backpack, still hanging off her shoulder. "I'm fine. Should we start with the material, or do you want to tell me what topics you're struggling with?" For the first time, something like amusement flickered across his face. It disappeared as quickly as it came. "I'm Kwon Tae-jin," he said, "and I'm not preparing for any exam." Her stomach dropped. "Then why am I here?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Before she could respond, he slid a folder across the table toward her. Samira stared at it but didn't touch it. "Open it," Tae-jin said. She did. Inside was a single page, printed in English and Korean, her referral code from the tutoring agency. Dates. Times. File transfers she'd never made. Data packets she'd never heard of, all linked to her account. "I don't understand," she said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. "Someone used your referral code to move information through Mrs. Beck's system," Tae-jin said. "Financial records. Very sensitive financial records. Records that belonged to me." Samira looked up sharply. "I didn't do this. I barely know how to use the agency's app. I just show up when Mrs. Beck texts me an address." "I believe you." She blinked. "You do?" "Yes." Then why am I here? Tae-jin leaned back in his chair, studying her again with that unreadable expression. Because whoever used your code knows you, knows your schedule, knows you're vulnerable enough not to ask questions. The word vulnerable hit her like cold water. I'm not vulnerable, she said. You're here, aren't you? Samira stood up, the chair scraping loud against the floor. Her knee buckled slightly, but she caught herself on the edge of the table. I came here to work. If you don't actually need a tutor, then I'm leaving. Sit down. No. Tae-jin stood too. Not fast, not aggressive, but the air in the room changed. He was taller than she'd thought, broader. If you leave now, he said quietly, you'll walk out of this building and straight into a problem you don't know how to solve. Whoever set you up is still out there. They used you once. They'll use you again, or they'll make sure you can't talk about what you've seen. I haven't seen anything. You've seen this. He tapped the folder. And now, you've seen me. Samira's pulse hammered in her throat. Who are you? Someone who keeps track of loose ends. I'm not a loose end. Then prove it. Sit down. She didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But where would she go? Back to her tiny apartment in Itaewon with the broken lock and the landlord who kept threatening to call immigration? Back to Mrs. Bayek, who clearly knew more than she'd let on. Slowly, Samira sat. Tae-jin sat too. Good, he said. Now we can talk. If you're already hooked, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to get way more complicated, and you don't want to miss what happens when Samira realizes exactly what kind of world she just stepped into. Here's what's going to happen, Tae-jin said, folding his hands on the table again, like they were negotiating a business deal. You're going to come here twice a week, just like Mrs. Beck scheduled. You're going to tutor me in economics, or we'll pretend you are. And while you're here, you're going to tell me everything you remember about the agency, about the people you've met, about anyone who's asked you questions. Why would I do that? Because I'll pay you twice what Mrs. Beck offered, and because if you don't, I'll assume you're part of the problem. That's extortion. That's protection. Samira laughed, sharp and bitter. You're not protecting me. You're using me. Yes. At least he was honest. She stared at him, trying to read something, anything, in that perfectly controlled expression. What happens when you find whoever did this? That's not your concern. It is if you're dragging me into it. Tae-jin's jaw tightened, the first real crack in his composure. You were dragged into this the moment someone used your name. I'm offering you a way to walk out of it alive. Alive, Samira repeated. You're saying if I don't help you, I'm in danger. Yes. From you? He paused. From people who don't ask as many questions as I do. That should have terrified her. Maybe it did. But there was something else underneath the fear. Something stubborn and sharp that had kept her going when her scholarship disappeared, when her savings ran out, when every door in Seoul seemed designed to close in her face. 160,000 won, she said. Per session. Cash. Tae-jin raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating. You said twice what Mrs. Beck offered. She promised 80,000. I'll give you 200,000. Samira blinked. That was more than she made in a week at her other part-time jobs combined. Enough to pay rent and eat something besides convenience store rice balls. Why? She asked. Because you're smart enough to negotiate, which means you're smart enough to notice things. I need someone who notices things. He slid a pen and a small notepad across the table. Start with Mrs. Bayek. How did you meet her? Samira picked up the pen slowly. Her hand was shaking. She willed it to stop. 6 months ago, she said. I was looking for work. Someone at the university, another international student, gave me her number. Said she helped people like us find jobs that paid under the table. People like you. People whose visas are complicated. Tae-jin wrote something on his own notepad. What made your visa complicated? Samira hesitated. This was the part she didn't talk about. The part that still felt like shame, even though none of it had been her fault. My scholarship was revoked, she said finally. Administrative issue, they said. A funding reallocation. But it happened a week after I reported a professor for changing grades for students who paid him. Tae-jin's pen stopped moving. He looked up at her. You reported him. Yes. Knowing it might cost you. I didn't think they'd actually punish me for it. Something shifted in his expression, too quick for her to name. How long until your visa expires? 3 months, maybe less if I can't prove I'm enrolled. And you can't re-enroll without the scholarship. No. He went back to writing. Samira watched his hand move across the paper, quick and precise. Everything about him was precise. The way he sat, the way he spoke, even the way he looked at her, felt calculated. Mrs. Bick knew about your visa situation, he said. Yes? And she offered you work anyway. She offered a lot of people work. I wasn't special. Did she ask you to do anything besides tutoring? Samira frowned. Like what? Deliver anything. Carry messages. Meet people in specific places. No. Just tutoring. Sometimes test prep. Sometimes conversation practice for business English. Did you ever use your referral code? Once. Another student wanted to sign up, and I gave her my code, because Mrs. Bayek said we'd both get a bonus. What was her name? I don't remember. It was months ago. Tae-jin's eyes sharpened. Try. Samira closed her eyes, thinking back. Sarah? Maybe. No, wait. Sarah without the H. Sarah Kim. She was Korean American, needed help with Korean writing. Did you ever see her again? No. She stopped showing up after 2 sessions. Tae-jin wrote that down. Then he stood abruptly and walked to the window. The rain was still coming down hard, streaking the glass in long silver lines. You'll start next week, he said without turning around. Same time. Bring materials for macroeconomic theory, global trade policy, whatever you think someone in my position should know. What is your position? He turned slightly, just enough for her to see his profile against the dark window. I run a business that requires discretion. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. Samira stood too, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. The weight made her knee throb. If I do this, I need your word that you won't hurt me. Tae-jin turned fully now, looking at her straight on. I won't hurt you. Or have someone else hurt me. Or have someone else hurt you. Or get me deported. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Or get you deported. Okay. She started toward the elevator, trying not to limp, failing completely. Behind her, she heard him move. Samira. She stopped, but didn't turn around. The limp, he said. How long have you had it? Her throat tightened. Why does it matter? It matters. She looked back at him over her shoulder. 2 years. An accident. It doesn't affect my work. I didn't say it did. Then why ask? Because you're in pain, and you're pretending you're not. Samira's hands curled into fists. I'm fine. You're not. With respect, she said, putting every ounce of sharpness she had into the words. You don't know anything about me. Not yet, Tae-jin said. But I will. The elevator doors opened. Samira stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. Just before the doors closed, she saw him still standing there, watching her with that same unreadable expression. When she got outside, the rain soaked her again within seconds. She stood under the building's awning, trying to catch her breath, trying to stop shaking. 200,001, twice a week. She could survive on that, maybe even save enough to hire a lawyer, fight the visa issue properly. But the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd noticed. Samira pulled her jacket tighter and stepped into the rain. She didn't see the black car parked across the street, or the man inside it watching her limp toward the subway station. But Tae-jin did. He stood at the window, phone already to his ear. "Follow her," he said quietly. "Don't approach. Just make sure she gets home." On the other end, Yoon Jae-sung's voice crackled. "You think she's involved?" "No." "Then why the protection detail?" Tae-jin watched Samira disappear around the corner, small and stubborn and soaked to the bone. "Because if she's not involved, she's bait," he said. "And I want to know who's fishing." He hung up. The apartment felt too quiet again. Tae-jin looked down at the notepad where he'd written everything she'd said. Her handwriting was small and careful on the other page. Her notes, about Mrs. Bayek, cramped into neat rows like she was afraid of taking up too much space. He picked up the folder with her referral code and flipped it open again. Someone had used her. Someone smart enough to know she wouldn't notice, desperate enough not to ask questions, isolated enough not to have anyone to tell. But they'd made one mistake. They'd sent her to him, and now she was his problem. Tae-jin closed the folder and walked to his office. He had calls to make, people to lean on, threads to pull, until something unraveled. But first, he opened his laptop and pulled up the background check his people had run on Samira Msangi. 26 years old, born in Addis Ababa, scholarship student, top of her class, fluent in 4 languages, no criminal record, no debt beyond normal student expenses, no family in Korea. The file was clean, too clean. People weren't clean. People had complications, messy histories, things they were running from or toward. Samira had none of that, which meant either she was exactly who she appeared to be, a student who'd been screwed over by a corrupt system and was trying to survive, or she was very, very good at hiding. Tae-jin scrolled down to the incident report from 2 years ago, a car accident in Addis Ababa. She'd been a passenger. The driver, her older brother, had died on impact. She'd spent 3 months in the hospital learning to walk again. He sat back in his chair. She'd lost someone. She knew what it was like to have something taken without warning, without fairness, without the chance to fight back. Tae-jin understood that. He closed the laptop. Tomorrow he'd have Jae-sung dig deeper into Mrs. Baek's operation, trace every referral code, find the ghost in the system. Tonight, he just sat in the dark and thought about a girl who'd negotiated her own pay while her hands were shaking. 3 days later, Samira's phone buzzed. She was in the middle of her shift at a convenience store in Hongdae, restocking shelves and trying to ignore the group of drunk college students arguing about ramen brands. The message was from an unknown number. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Same place. Bring your materials. No name. No signature. She didn't need one. Samira stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She could ignore it. Block the number. Pretend the whole thing had been a bad dream. But 200,000 won. She typed back. "I'll be there." The reply came instantly. "Good." That was it. No pleasantries, no confirmation of details. Just good, like he'd expected nothing less. Samira shoved her phone back in her pocket and went back to stocking shelves. One of the college students knocked over a display of chips. She didn't react. Her manager yelled at her to clean it up. She did. By the time her shift ended at midnight, her knee was screaming and she'd made 32,000 won. Minus transportation, minus the kimbap she'd bought for dinner, she'd cleared maybe 25,000. 8 hours for 25,000 won. 2 hours with Kwon Tae-jin for 200,000. The math wasn't hard, but numbers didn't account for the weight in her chest every time she thought about going back to that apartment, sitting across from that man who saw too much. Samira rode the train home and climbed the 4 flights of stairs to her apartment because the elevator was broken again. By the time she unlocked her door, she was exhausted. Inside, the apartment was exactly as she'd left it. Tiny. Cold. The window didn't close all the way, so there was always a draft. But it was hers. For now. She dropped her bag and collapsed onto the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mrs. Beck. "I heard you met with a private client." "Well done. Let me know if you need anything." Samira deleted the message without responding. Something about it felt wrong. The timing, the tone, the way Mrs. Beck had never checked in on her before, but suddenly cared now. She thought about what Tae-jin had said. "Whoever set you up knows you." Sarah Kim. The name rattled around in her head. She pulled out her laptop and opened the tutoring agency's portal, scrolling through her past sessions. There. 4 months ago, 2 sessions with Sarah Kim, Korean writing practice. Samira clicked on the account. Deleted. Not deactivated. Deleted. Like it had never existed. Her stomach turned. She opened her referral history. The code had been used 6 times under Sarah's account, all within a 2-week period, all for sessions that never actually happened. Samira took a screenshot and sent it to the unknown number. Found something. The reply came 5 minutes later. "I'm sending someone to you. Don't leave your apartment." "Wait, what?" She typed back immediately. "What do you mean, sending someone?" "I'm not letting a stranger into my apartment. He's not a stranger. He works for me. His name is Yoon Jae-sung. He'll be there in 20 minutes. Samira stood up, pacing the small room. This was escalating too fast. She barely knew Tae-jin, and now he was sending people to her home? "I didn't agree to this." The reply was blunt. "You sent me evidence in the middle of the night. That means someone might be watching your activity on the portal. If they are, they know you're digging. Jae-sung is there for your protection, not mine." Samira wanted to argue, wanted to throw the phone across the room and scream. But he was right. She'd been stupid, reckless. If someone had used her account before, they might still have access to it. Might be watching right now. Fine. But he stays outside. Agreed. Exactly 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Samira looked through the peephole and saw a man in his early 40s, wearing a dark jacket and an expression that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. She opened the door a crack, keeping the chain lock on. "Yoon Jae-sung." "Yes." "Tae-jin sent you." "Yes." "You're supposed to stay outside." For the first time, Jae-sung's expression shifted, something almost like amusement. "That's what he told me." "Okay. So, stay outside." "Understood." Samira closed the door and locked it. Then she stood there, listening. She heard him move, heard him settle against the wall opposite her door. He was actually staying. She didn't know whether to be relieved or more terrified. Samira went back to her laptop and kept digging. By 3 in the morning, she had a list of 12 referral codes that had been used the same way as hers. Fake accounts, fake sessions, real data transfers. She sent the list to Tae-jin. His response came immediately, like he hadn't been sleeping either. "Good work. Get some rest. Jae-sung will stay until morning." She should have been angry. Should have hated the idea of someone standing guard outside her door like she was a prisoner. But instead, for the first time in months, Samira fell asleep without checking the lock 3 times. When she woke up 6 hours later, Jae-sung was gone. In his place was a paper bag with a coffee and a red bean pastry from the bakery 2 blocks away. No note. Samira picked up the coffee. It was still warm. She sat on her bed and drank it slowly, staring at the door. This was her life now. Whatever this was. Tuesday arrived faster than Samira wanted. She spent the day rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd act, trying to convince herself this was just a job. Just tutoring. Just business. But when she stepped off the elevator at 8 p.m. sharp, carrying a folder full of economics notes she'd spent hours preparing, Tae-jin wasn't alone. 2 men stood near the dining table. One was Jae-sung, who nodded at her briefly. The other was younger, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Tae-jin was standing by the window, hands in his pockets. He turned when she entered. "You're on time?" I learned my lesson about being late, Samira said. The younger man laughed. She's funny. I like her. Out, Tae-jin said without looking at him. We're not done discussing the shipment issue. Yes, we are. Out. The man's smile faded. He glanced at Samira, then at Tae-jin, then back at Samira. Something passed across his face. Understanding, maybe. Or suspicion. Sure, Hyung. We'll finish later. He left, Jae-sung following behind him. The elevator doors closed. Samira and Tae-jin were alone. Friend of yours? She asked. Associate. He looked at me like I was a problem. You are a problem, Tae-jin said, but there was no heat in it. Sit. She did, spreading her notes across the table. Tae-jin sat across from her, the same position as last time. I found more, Samira said, pushing the printed list toward him. 12 accounts, same pattern. All deleted now. He picked up the paper, scanning it quickly. When did you pull this? 3 nights ago, after I sent you the first screenshot. I told you to rest. I couldn't sleep. Tae-jin looked up from the paper. Because you were worried, or because Jae-sung was outside your door? Both. He almost smiled. Almost. The coffee was his idea. Tell him thank you. Tell him yourself. He'll be driving you home tonight. Samira blinked. I can take the train. Not anymore. That's not your decision. It is now. Tae-jin set the paper down and leaned back in his chair. Someone accessed the agency portal from your account 2 hours after you sent me that screenshot. They deleted 4 more accounts and tried to erase the server logs. Her blood went cold. They know I'm looking. Yes. So what happens now? Now you stop using your own account for anything. Jae-sung will set you up with a secure device tomorrow. And you don't go anywhere alone after dark. For how long? Until I find who's doing this. Samira's hands tightened on the edge of the table. You're putting a leash on me. I'm keeping you alive. Same thing. It's not. She stood up, the chair scraping back. Her knee protested, but she ignored it. I didn't agree to this. I agreed to tutoring, to answering questions, not to being followed everywhere like I'm some kind of prisoner. Tae-jin stood too, slower, his eyes never leaving hers. You became part of this the moment you found that list. You think whoever's behind this is going to let you walk away because you're inconvenient? They've already killed to protect this operation. What? The student you mentioned. Sarah Kim. We found her body yesterday. Dumped in the Han River 3 months ago. The room tilted. Samira grabbed the back of the chair to steady herself. Sarah Kim. The girl who'd used her referral code. The girl who'd disappeared after 2 sessions. Dead. I don't understand, Samira whispered. She was part of it. Probably recruited to set up the fake accounts. When she became a liability, they got rid of her. And you think they'll do the same to me? Tae-jin moved around the table, not close enough to touch, but close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. I think if they wanted you dead, you already would be, he said quietly. Which means they still think you're useful. Or they're waiting to see what you know. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to make you take this seriously. Samira forced herself to breathe, in and out, slow and steady. Okay, she said finally. Okay. Jae-sung drives me home. I use the secure device. I don't go anywhere alone. Good. But I want something in return. Tae-jin raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating again. You said I was good at it. This time he actually smiled, small and quick, but real. What do you want? The truth. About what you do. About why someone would steal from you and kill to hide it. The smile disappeared. That's not a small thing to ask. I know. Tae-jin walked back to the window, looking out at the city lights spreading below them. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. I run a financial operation, investments, acquisitions, trade logistics. Most of it is legitimate. Some of it exists in spaces where legitimacy is more flexible. You're saying you're a criminal? I'm saying I operate in markets that don't wait for government approval. Samira processed that. And the information that was stolen? Client lists, transaction records, routes and contacts for shipments that certain people would pay a lot of money to intercept or expose. Shipments of what? Does it matter? Yes. He turned to look at her. Why? Because if I'm risking my life for this, I need to know it's not for something I can't live with. Tai-Jin studied her for a long moment. Then he said, luxury goods, electronics, medicine that's legal in some countries and restricted in others. I don't move weapons. I don't move people. I have lines. I don't cross. But you do cross some lines. Yes. And you've hurt people. Yes. At least he wasn't lying to her. Samira sat back down slowly. Okay. Okay? I'm not saying I approve. I'm saying I understand. Tai-Jin came back to the table and sat across from her again. You surprise me. Why? Most people either judge immediately or pretend they don't care. You do neither. I grew up in a country where the legal system protects the powerful and punishes everyone else, Samira said. I watched police take bribes while my neighbors starved. I watched government officials steal aid money while people died in hospitals. So, no, I'm not going to pretend the law is the same as morality. Something shifted in Tai-Jin's expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Your brother, he said. The accident. It wasn't an accident, was it? Samira's breath stopped. How do you know about my brother? I know about everything. That's not an answer. He was driving a supply truck for a medical charity. Someone ran him off the road. The police called it an accident and closed the case in 48 hours. Her hands were shaking now. She pressed them flat against the table. Who told you that? My people are thorough. Your people invaded my privacy. Yes. You had no right. I had every right. You're in my world now. I need to know who you are. Samira stood again, anger burning through the shock. You don't know anything about me. You know facts. You know dates and reports and whatever else you could dig up, but you don't know me. Tai-Jin stood too, and this time, when he moved closer, there was something different in the way he looked at her. Something raw. Then tell me, he said. Why should I? Because I'm asking. That's not good enough. What would be good enough? Samira didn't have an answer. They stood there, 3 feet apart, the silence stretching between them like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, Tai-Jin stepped back. We should focus on the tutoring, he said, his voice carefully neutral again. That's what you came here for. It took her a moment to shift gears, to remember the notes she'd prepared, the lesson she'd planned. Right, she said. Economics. Do you actually want to learn this? Or are we just pretending? Teach me something. Samira pulled out a chart she'd drawn, supply and demand curves intersecting. Basic market theory. When supply increases and demand stays constant, prices drop. When demand increases and supply stays constant, prices rise. I know this already. Then tell me how it applies to your business. Tai-Jin sat down, leaning back in his chair. I control supply on certain routes. If I flood the market, prices crash and my competitors can't sustain their operations. If I restrict supply, prices rise and I maximize profit per unit. But if you restrict too much, you create space for new competitors to enter the market. Which is why I maintain calculated scarcity, enough restriction to keep prices high, enough supply to prevent desperation that breeds innovation. Samira pulled out another chart. What about elasticity? If your prices get too high, demand shifts to substitutes. There are no substitutes for what I provide. There are always substitutes. Not if you control those too. She looked at him. You're describing a monopoly. I'm describing efficiency. You're describing how to choke out competition. Same thing. Despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the sheer insanity of her situation, Samira felt something like excitement. This was the first real conversation she'd had about economics in months. The first time someone had actually challenged her, pushed back, made her think. "Monopolies collapse," she said. "History proves it. Someone always finds a way to break them. Only if the monopoly gets complacent." "Are you complacent?" Tae-jin's eyes glinted. "What do you think?" "I think you're paranoid enough to have someone follow me home and controlling enough to investigate every person you meet. So no, probably not complacent." "Paranoid and controlling. That's your assessment of me? Am I wrong?" "No." Samira sat down again, spreading out more notes. "Then let's talk about risk management, because clearly you're good at it." They worked for the next hour, falling into a rhythm that felt almost natural. He'd pose a scenario from his business. She'd break down the economic theory behind it. And they'd argue about applications until one of them conceded a point. He was smart. Sharper than most of her professors. And he listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel like her words actually mattered. By the time they finished, it was past 10. Samira started packing up her notes. "Same time next week?" "Thursday," Tae-jin said. "I want twice a week until we find who's behind this." That wasn't the deal. 400,001 per week, 2 sessions. She stopped packing. "You're bribing me. I'm compensating you for increased risk and inconvenience." Still sounds like a bribe. Does it matter? Honestly, no. 400,001 a week would solve almost all her immediate problems. "Fine," she said. "Tuesday and Thursday. But I'm not available before 7. 7 works. Samira slung her bag over her shoulder. The weight made her wince, just slightly, and Tae-jin noticed immediately. "Let me see your knee," he said. "No." "Samira, it's fine. You're limping worse than you were an hour ago. It's always worse at night. I'm used to it. That doesn't mean you should have to be." There was something in his voice, something gentle that made her chest tighten. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. Tae-jin didn't answer right away. He looked at her like he was trying to figure out the answer himself. "I don't know yet," he said finally. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered it, his expression going cold and blank in an instant. "When?" Pause. "Where is he now?" Pause. "Don't touch him. I'm coming." He hung up and looked at Samira. "Jae-sung will take you home. Don't wait for me." "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about." But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand had curled into a fist. "Tae-jin." He stopped at the door, looking back at her. "Be careful," she said. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. "I'm always careful," he said. Then he was gone. Hey, quick pause here. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure you're following along because things are about to get intense. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Jae-sung appeared in the elevator 30 seconds later, as if he'd been waiting just out of sight. "Ready?" he asked. Samira nodded. They rode down in silence. A black car was waiting outside, engine running. "Is he in trouble?" Samira asked, as Jae-sung opened the door for her. "He's always in some kind of trouble," Jae-sung said. "That's the job." "What happened tonight?" "Can't tell you that. Can't or won't. Both." Samira slid into the back seat. Jae-sung closed the door and got into the driver's seat. As they pulled away from the building, Samira looked back. She could see lights on in the top floor, Tae-jin's apartment. And then they turned a corner, and it disappeared. "He's going to get himself killed one day, isn't he?" she said. Jae-sung glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Probably, but not today." "How can you be sure?" "Because he's too stubborn to die before he finishes what he started." They drove through Seoul's night traffic, neon signs and crowded streets blurring past the window. "The coffee," Samira said. "That morning. Thank you." Jae-sung's expression softened just slightly. "You're welcome." "Why did you do it?" Because Tae-jin told me to make sure you were taken care of. And you always do what he says? When it makes sense. Did that make sense? Jae-sung was quiet for a moment. Then he said, he doesn't usually notice when people are struggling. He notices threats, opportunities, weaknesses to exploit. But he noticed you were tired, that you probably hadn't eaten. That made me curious. Curious about what? About why you're different. Samira didn't know what to say to that. They pulled up outside her building 20 minutes later. Jae-sung got out and opened her door, then walked her to the entrance. I'll be here at 6:45 on Thursday to pick you up, he said. I can take the train. Tae-jin said I'd drive you, so I drive you. Does anyone ever win an argument with him? Jae-sung smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. You did. Twice. That's more than most people manage. He waited until she was inside before getting back in the car. Samira climbed the stairs to her apartment, her knee screaming with each step. Inside, she dropped her bag and collapsed on the bed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. But she knew who it was. Did Jae-sung get you home safely? She typed back. Yes. Good. Get some rest. She should have left it there. Should have put the phone down and gone to sleep. Instead, she typed, Are you okay? The reply took longer this time. Why are you asking? Because you looked worried when you left. I don't get worried. Everyone gets worried. Not about things I can control. And if you can't control it, then I make sure I can. Samira stared at the message, reading between the lines. Whatever had happened tonight, whoever had called him, it was serious enough to make him drop everything. Be safe, she typed. Always am. That was a lie, and they both knew it. She put her phone down and closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easy. She kept thinking about the way Tae-jin had looked at her when she asked him to be careful. Like no one had said that to him in a long time. Like he didn't know what to do with it. Thursday came, and Jae-sung was outside her building at exactly 6:45. Samira had spent the past 2 days jumping at shadows, checking over her shoulder, waiting for something bad to happen. Nothing had, but the waiting was almost worse. You look tired, Jae-sung said as she got in the car. I haven't been sleeping well. Nightmares? Just regular dreams where I'm being chased by people I can't see. That's a nightmare. Feels more like a documentary at this point. Jae-sung actually laughed at that. When they arrived at Tae-jin's building, Jae-sung walked her up. The elevator opened, and Samira stepped into the apartment, expecting to see Tae-jin at the table, like before. Instead, there was a woman. She was maybe 40, elegant in a way that seemed effortless, wearing a black dress and heels that cost more than Samira's entire wardrobe. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and when she looked at Samira, her eyes were sharp and assessing. You must be Samira, the woman said in perfect English. I'm Min Seo-yeon. I handle financial operations for Tae-jin's organization. Samira shook her hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Where's Tae-jin? Samira asked. Delayed. He asked me to start the session with you. I'm supposed to be tutoring him, not you. Seo-yeon smiled. Consider this an audition. If you can explain economic theory to me in a way that doesn't put me to sleep, you're worth what he's paying you. Great. A test. Samira set down her bag and pulled out her notes. What do you want to know? Currency fluctuation and its impact on international trade, specifically how to predict and profit from it. For the next 45 minutes, Samira talked through exchange rates, inflation patterns, central bank policies, and arbitrage opportunities. Seo-yeon listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small leather notebook. When Samira finished, Seo-yeon leaned back in her chair. You're good, she said. Better than I expected. Thanks, I think. It's a compliment. Tae-jin usually has terrible taste in people, but you actually know what you're talking about. Is that rare? In his world? Very. The elevator doors opened, and Tae-jin stepped out. He looked exhausted, his shirt wrinkled, hair slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. But when he saw Samira, something in his expression eased. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Seo Yan kept me company." "And tested you, I'm sure." "Thoroughly," Seo Yan said, standing. "She passed. Try not to scare her off." She left, heels clicking against the floor. Tae-jin sat down heavily in the chair across from Samira. How bad was she? Intense, but fair. That's Seo Yan. She doesn't waste time on politeness. I noticed. He rubbed his face with both hands. Samira had never seen him look this worn down. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Long few days. The phone call on Tuesday. Did you handle it?" "Mostly." "That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be." He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his gaze made her stomach flip. "You're still here. Where else would I be? Smart people would have run by now. Maybe I'm not that smart. You're brilliant, which makes this worse." "Makes what worse?" Tae-jin didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Teach me something new tonight. Something I don't know." Samira pulled out a different set of notes. Game theory. Specifically, the prisoner's dilemma. "I know the prisoner's dilemma." "Then explain it to me." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Two criminals are arrested. They're separated and can't communicate. If both stay silent, they both get light sentences. If one betrays the other, the betrayer goes free and the other gets a heavy sentence. If both betray each other, they both get moderate sentences. And what's the optimal strategy? Depends on whether you trust the other person. "No," Samira said. "That's the emotional answer. The rational answer is always to betray, because it protects you regardless of what the other person does." That assumes people are purely rational, aren't they? "No," Tae-jin said quietly. "People are messy. They make choices based on loyalty, fear, hope, things that don't fit into clean mathematical models. And you? Are you messy?" He smiled, tired but real. "More than I'd like to be." Samira felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. "What would you choose?" she asked. "In the prisoner's dilemma. Would you stay silent or betray?" "Depends on who else is in the room. Hypothetically, it's me." Tae-jin's eyes locked on hers. The air between them shifted, became heavier. "I'd stay silent," he said. "Why?" "Because you would." "How do you know?" "Because I'm learning how you think, and you don't betray people, even when it would save you." Samira's throat felt tight. "That's a dangerous assumption." "Most of my assumptions about you are dangerous." "Like what?" "Like the fact that I trust you more than I should. That I think about you more than I should. That every time you walk out that door, I worry about things I haven't worried about in years." The words hung in the air between them. Samira didn't know what to say, didn't know what she was supposed to feel. This man was dangerous, complicated, involved in things she didn't fully understand. But he was also honest with her, in a way no one else had been in a long time. "Tae-jin," she started. "Don't," he said. "You don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated. I know I've put you in an impossible situation. But I needed you to know." "Know what?" "That you matter. Not as evidence, not as a loose end. As a person. You matter to me." Samira's hands were shaking again. She pressed them against her lap. "I should go," she said. "Jae-sung will drive you." "I know." She stood, gathering her notes with clumsy hands. Tae-jin stood too. "Samira." She looked at him. "Same time next week?" he asked. She should say no. Should walk away from this whole mess while she still could. Instead, she said, "Tuesday at 7. I'll be here." In the car, Jae-sung didn't ask questions, just drove in comfortable silence while Samira stared out the window and tried to make sense of what had just happened. "That you matter to me. No one had said that to her in 2 years. Not since her brother died. Not since she'd left everything familiar behind and came to Seoul alone. Her phone buzzed. "Thank you for tonight." It was from Tae-jin. She typed back, "For what? For staying. For not running. For being exactly who you are." Samira stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she typed, "You're making this very difficult." "Good. You make everything difficult for me, too." Despite everything, she smiled. "That's fair. Get some rest, Samira. You too." When she got home, she didn't check the lock 3 times like usual. She just went to sleep, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't dream about being chased. She dreamed about a man with dark eyes, who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. The pattern held for 2 weeks. Tuesday and Thursday, 7 p.m. Samira showed up, and they pretended to focus on economics, while the real education happened in the spaces between words. She learned that Tae-jin took his coffee black, that he had a scar on his left hand he never explained, that when he was thinking hard about something, he'd tap his index finger against the table 3 times. He learned that she hummed when she was working through problems, that she chewed her bottom lip when she was nervous, that her limp was worst on cold days, but she never complained about it. They were learning each other. And that was the problem. On the 5th session, Samira arrived to find Tae-jin standing at the window, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and dangerous. "I don't care what it costs. Find him." He hung up when he saw her. "Bad day?" she asked, setting down her bag. "Bad week. Want to talk about it?" "No." "Want to pretend to learn about fiscal policy while you brood silently?" The corner of his mouth lifted. "Yes." They sat. Samira pulled out her notes, but before she could start, Tae-jin pushed a folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Your visa extension. Approved for another year." Her hands froze on the folder. "How did you do this?" "I know people." "Tae-jin, this is impossible. I've been trying for months, and they kept saying I needed enrollment verification, and I couldn't get that without the scholarship, and it's done. You're legal for another year." Samira opened the folder with shaking hands. There it was, official stamps and signatures, her name, her photo, valid through next December. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you were losing sleep over it. You can't just fix my problems because you feel like it. I can, actually. And I did." She looked up at him, emotions tangling in her chest. Gratitude, yes, but also anger, because this was too much, too fast, too intimate. "I can't pay you back for this. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" Tae-jin leaned back in his chair, studying her with that intense focus that made her feel transparent. "I'm asking you to stop pretending you're alone in this. You have people now. You have me." "For how long?" The question hung between them. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But for now, you have me." Samira closed the folder carefully. "Thank you." "You're welcome." They spent the next hour on fiscal policy, but Samira's mind kept wandering to the folder in her bag, to the man across from her who'd casually solved a problem that had been suffocating her for months. When the session ended, Tae-jin walked her to the elevator, like he always did now. "Samira," he said as the doors opened. She turned. He looked like he wanted to say something important, but instead he just said, "See you Thursday. See you Thursday." In the car, Jae-sung glanced at her in the mirror. "He fixed your visa." "How did you know?" "He's been working on it for a week. Made a lot of calls. Called in favors he usually saves for bigger things." "Why would he do that?" Jae-sung's expression softened. "You really don't know." "Know what?" "He cares about you. More than he should. More than is safe for either of you." Samira's heart hammered against her ribs. "That's ridiculous. We barely know each other. Time doesn't matter. I've seen him with a lot of people over the years. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. How does he look at me? Like you're the first real thing he's seen in a long time. When Samira got home that night, she sat on her bed with the visa folder in her lap and let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it hurt. She was legal. She could stay. She could breathe. And it was because of him. Her phone buzzed. Did you get home safely? Always the same question. Yes, she typed back. And thank you. Really? I don't know how to thank you enough. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. This changes everything. Good. You deserve things to change. She stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Why are you doing this? Why me? The reply took a long time. Because when I look at you, I see someone who refuses to break, even when the world gives them every reason to. That's rare. You're rare. Samira's chest felt too tight. I don't know what to say to that. Then don't say anything. Just know it's true. She put the phone down and pressed her hands to her face. This was getting dangerous. Not the threat from whoever had stolen Tae-jin's data. Not the risk of being followed or watched. This. The way her heart jumped when she saw him. The way she caught herself thinking about him at random moments. The way his smile, rare and small, felt like a gift. She was falling for him. And that terrified her more than anything else. Thursday's session started normally. Samira arrived at 7, and Tae-jin was waiting. They settled into their usual rhythm. But 20 minutes in, the elevator doors opened, and 3 men stepped out. Tae-jin's entire body went rigid. The man in front was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and cold eyes. The 2 behind him were younger, built like soldiers. "Kwon Tae-jin," the older man said in Korean, "we need to talk." "Not now," Tae-jin said, his voice flat. "Now." Tae-jin stood slowly. "Samira, wait in the other room." "What's happening?" she asked. "Just go." The steel in his voice made her move. She grabbed her bag and walked toward what looked like a study, but she left the door cracked open. She could hear everything. "Who is she?" the older man asked. "None of your concern." "Everything you do is my concern, especially when you're bringing outsiders into your space." "She's a tutor, nothing more. A tutor you've had investigated. A tutor you've extended visa protections for. A tutor Jae-sung drives home every night. Try again." Samira's blood ran cold. "She's not involved in the business," Tae-jin said. "Then why is she here?" "I told you, she's a tutor." "You don't need a tutor. You need to focus on the leak investigation. It's been 3 weeks and we still don't have answers." "I'm handling it." "Are you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're distracted. And distraction gets people killed." There was a pause, heavy and dangerous. "Are you threatening me?" Tae-jin asked quietly. "I'm reminding you where your priorities should be. Find the leak, close it, and get rid of anything that's pulling your attention away from that." She stays. "That's not your call to make." "Yes, it is." Another pause. "You're making a mistake," the older man said. "Women like that. They're liabilities. They ask questions. They have morals. They expect things you can't give them. She'll destroy you, or you'll destroy her. Either way, it ends badly. Get out. Tae-jin, get out of my home, now." Samira heard footsteps, the elevator doors opening and closing. Silence. Then Tae-jin's voice, low and strained. "You can come out now." She stepped back into the main room. Tae-jin was standing by the window, hands braced against the glass, head bowed. "Who was that?" Samira asked. "Park Jin-woo, one of the senior members of the organization. He wanted you to get rid of me." "Yes." "Are you going to?" Tae-jin turned to look at her. His eyes were dark, with something that looked like pain. "No. Even though it would be easier. I don't care about easier. Tae-jin, if I'm putting you in danger." "You're not." I am. I'm the one who chose to keep you close. I'm the one who chose to protect you. That's on me, not you. Samira crossed the room until she was standing in front of him, close enough to see the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion around his eyes. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." His hands curled into fists at his sides. "I want you to stay safe. I want you to finish your degree and build the life you came here for. I want you to have choices. What if I choose you?" The words were out before she could stop them. Tae-jin's eyes widened, just slightly. "Don't." "Why not?" "Because I can't give you what you deserve. I can't give you normal or safe or simple. All I can give you is this." He gestured around the apartment, at the life he'd built in shadows and secrets. "And you deserve more than this." "What if this is enough?" "It won't be. Eventually, you'll wake up and realize what you've given up to be with someone like me, and you'll resent me for it." "You don't know that. I've seen it happen." "To who?" He looked away. "People I cared about. People who thought they could handle my world, and then learned they couldn't." Samira reached out slowly and touched his hand. His skin was warm, his fingers still curled tight. "I'm not them," she said. "I know. That's what scares me." Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered it, voice clipped. "What?" His expression changed, hardened. "When?" Pause. "Where?" Pause. "I'm coming." He hung up and looked at Samira. "We found the leak. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The person who's been selling my information is someone inside my organization, someone I trusted. And they know we're closing in." "What does that mean?" "It means they're going to run, and when they run, they'll burn everything behind them, including evidence that connects back to you." Samira's stomach dropped. "What do I do?" "Jae-sung is going to take you somewhere safe, a secure location. You'll stay there until this is over." "For how long?" "I don't know. A few days, maybe a week." "What about my classes? My job at the convenience store?" "I'll handle it, but you need to go. Now." The elevator opened, and Jae-sung stepped out, already moving like this was planned. "Wait," Samira said. "I want to help." "No. Tae-jin, if this person has information about me, I should be involved in." "No." His voice was final, absolute. "You're not getting anywhere near this. I won't risk you." "That's not your decision to make." "Yes, it is. Because if something happens to you, if you get hurt because of me, I won't survive that. Do you understand? I won't survive it." The raw honesty in his voice stopped her cold. Jae-sung cleared his throat. "We need to go." Samira looked at Tae-jin one more time. "Be careful." "Always am." "That's still a lie." He almost smiled. "I know." Jae-sung drove her to a building in Gangnam, high-rise and expensive-looking. He took her up to the 20th floor and opened the door to an apartment that was 3 times the size of hers. "You'll be safe here," he said. "No one knows about this place except me and Tae-jin." "How long do I have to stay?" "Until he says it's safe." "And if that's never?" Jae-sung's expression softened. "He'll make it safe. That's what he does for people he cares about." He left her there with instructions not to open the door for anyone but him or Tae-jin. Samira spent the first hour exploring the apartment. Fully furnished, fully stocked kitchen, windows that overlooked the city. It was beautiful. It was also a cage. She tried to distract herself with schoolwork, but her mind kept wandering. Who was the leak? How had they been caught? Was Tae-jin safe? Her phone buzzed. "Are you settled?" "Yes." "This apartment is nicer than anywhere I've ever lived." "Good." "Try to rest. What's happening on your end?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving you tonight." Samira threw her phone on the couch in frustration. 2 days passed. No word from Tae-jin except brief messages confirming he was alive and working on the problem. Samira felt like she was going insane. She'd gone from being in the middle of everything to being completely cut off. On the third day, Jae-sung showed up with groceries and news. "We have him," he said. "The leak. Choi Min-jun, one of Tae-jin's financial officers." "How did you find him?" "He made a mistake. Tried to access a server he shouldn't have. We traced it back." "What happens now?" Jae-sung's expression went carefully blank. "Tae-jin handles it." "Meaning what?" "Meaning you don't want to know." But she did want to know. She wanted to understand what Tae-jin was capable of, what kind of justice existed in his world. "Is he going to kill him?" she asked bluntly. Jae-sung didn't flinch. "Probably not. Tae-jin doesn't kill people unless he has to. But Choi will wish he had." That should have horrified her. Maybe it did, a little. But mostly she just felt relieved that the threat was contained. "Can I go home now?" she asked. "Not yet. There's still the buyer to deal with, the person Choi was selling information to." "Who is it?" "Foreign intelligence operative. We're still identifying which agency. But they know about you. They know you were used to move data. That makes you a loose end they'll want to tie up." "So, I'm still in danger." "Yes." "For how long?" "Until Tae-jin neutralizes the threat." Samira sank onto the couch. "This is never going to end, is it?" "It will. He won't stop until you're safe." That night, Tae-jin finally called, instead of texting. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm going crazy locked up here." "I know. I'm sorry. When can I leave?" "Soon. We're making progress." Jae-sung told me about Choi. Tae-jin was quiet for a moment. "What did he tell you?" "That you caught him. That you're handling it. That's all you need to know." "Is it true what Park Jin-woo said, that I'm a distraction?" "Yes." The honesty hurt. "Maybe he's right," Samira said quietly. "Maybe I should walk away from this. From you. Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore. A month ago, my life was simple. Difficult, but simple. Now I'm hiding in a luxury apartment while you deal with people who want me dead. And I don't even know if I'm helping or making everything worse." "You're not making anything worse. How can you be sure?" "Because before you, I was just going through motions, building an empire I didn't care about, surrounding myself with people I didn't trust. You made me remember what it feels like to want something real." Samira's eyes burned. "Tae-jin, I know this is hard. I know I'm asking too much. But please, just hold on a little longer. I'm going to fix this. What if you can't?" "I will. You can't control everything. Watch me." Despite everything, she smiled. They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything. He told her about a business deal that had gone surprisingly well. She told him about a paper she was writing on East African trade routes. It felt normal. It felt like they were just two people getting to know each other, not a criminal, and the woman caught in his world. When they finally hung up, Samira felt lighter. 3 hours later, everything fell apart. She woke to the sound of someone trying to break down the door, not knocking, breaking. Samira grabbed her phone and ran to the bedroom, locking herself inside. Her hands shook so badly she could barely dial. Tae-jin answered on the first ring. "They found me," she whispered. "Where are you?" "Bedroom. Someone's trying to get in." "Stay on the phone with me. Jae-sung is 5 minutes away." "I don't have 5 minutes." The apartment door crashed open. Footsteps, heavy and fast. Samira looked around frantically. The bedroom window didn't open. There was no other exit. She was trapped. "Tae-jin, I'm scared." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The bedroom door handle rattled. Then a voice, accented English. "Samira Masangi, we know you're in there. Come out and we can talk." "Don't," Tae-jin said in her ear. "Don't open that door." "We just want information," the voice continued. "About the data you moved. About Kwan Tae-jin's operation. You help us. We let you go." "They're lying," Tae-jin said. Samira pressed herself against the far wall. What do I do? Jae-sung is 3 minutes out. Just hold on. The door shook as someone slammed against it. Samira's mind raced. She thought about everything she'd learned, everything she'd seen. The economics lessons, the way Tae-jin negotiated, the strategies he used, game theory, the prisoner's dilemma. What would Tae-jin do? He'd find leverage. "I have copies," she shouted through the door. The slamming stopped. "What?" Tae-jin said in her ear. "Copies of everything," Samira called out. "All the data that was moved through my account. I downloaded it before I knew what it was. If anything happens to me, it gets released to every news agency in Seoul." "Samira, what are you doing?" Tae-jin asked. "Buying time," she whispered. "You're bluffing," the voice said. "Try me." Silence, then footsteps, moving away. A minute later, glass shattered somewhere in the apartment. Then, nothing. "Samira?" Tae-jin's voice was strained. "I'm here. Are they gone?" "I think so. Stay in the bedroom. Don't come out until Jae-sung gets there." 2 minutes later, she heard the apartment door open again, and Jae-sung's voice. "Clear. She's safe." Samira unlocked the bedroom door on shaking legs. Jae-sung was there, gun in hand, checking every room. "They came through the window," he said. "Professionals. But they left when you said you had copies." "I don't actually have copies." "I know. Smart bluff." Samira's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor. Jae-sung holstered his gun and crouched beside her. "You okay?" "No." "Fair enough. Let's get you out of here." "Before you find out what happens next, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is about to reach its breaking point, and you absolutely need to see how Samira and Tae-jin find their way back to each other. Don't miss it. Jae-sung took her to a different location, a hotel this time, with security stationed outside her room. Tae-jin arrived an hour later. He walked through the door and just stopped, looking at her, like he was confirming she was real. "You're okay," he said. "I'm okay." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Samira froze for half a second, then wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have protected you better." "You did protect me. I'm alive. Barely." He pulled back just enough to look at her, hands on her shoulders. "The bluff you pulled," he said. "That was brilliant. I learned from the best. You could have gotten yourself killed. But I didn't." His hands tightened. "Samira, this has to stop. You can't be anywhere near me anymore. It's not safe." "So what? You're just going to cut me off?" "I'm going to keep you alive." "By pushing me away?" "Yes." Samira stepped back, his hands falling away. "I don't accept that. It's not up for debate. Everything is up for debate. You taught me that. This is different." "Why? Because you care about me? Because you're scared?" "Yes!" the word echoed in the small room. Tae-jin ran both hands through, his hair, looking more undone than she'd ever seen him. "I can't lose you," he said quietly. "I can't watch you get hurt because of me. I won't survive it." "Then don't push me away. Work with me. Let me help end this." "How?" Samira pulled out her phone. "I might have bluffed about having copies, but I can get them. I still have access to the agency portal. If I can log in and pull the original files before they scrub them completely, we'll have proof of exactly what was moved and who received it." "That's too dangerous. If you log in, they'll trace it." "Not if I do it from somewhere they're not expecting. Not if I use a secure connection." Tae-jin shook his head. "No. You don't get to make this decision for me." "Yes, I do." "No, you don't. This is my life, my risk, and I'm choosing to take it." They stared at each other, neither backing down. Finally, Tae-jin said, "If I agree to this, you do exactly what I say. No improvising, no taking extra risks. Fine. And afterwards, you walk away. You go back to your life, and you stay away from me. That one hurt. If that's what it takes to end this, Samira said. Yes. She was lying. They both knew it. But he nodded anyway. Jae-sung will set you up with a secure device tomorrow. We'll plan it carefully. And Samira? Yes? Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to stay when you should have run. He left before she could respond. The operation happened 3 days later. Samira sat in a room with computers and people she'd never met, all of them working for Tae-jin. He stood behind her as she logged into the agency portal using credentials Jae-sung had somehow obtained. Her hands were steady as she navigated to the file directory. There, she said, pointing. Those folders. That's where the transferred data would be stored. One of Tae-jin's tech people took over, copying everything to an external drive. Got it, he said. Clean extraction. They won't know we were here. Tae-jin's hand landed on Samira's shoulder just for a second. Well done. They spent the next 6 hours analyzing the files, transaction records, client lists, shipping routes, everything Choi had stolen, everything he'd sold to the foreign operative. And there, buried in the metadata, was the buyer's identity. CIA, Co. Yan said, reading the report. Operating off book. They wanted your network to track weapons shipments in the region. Except I don't move weapons, Tae-jin said. They don't know that. Or they don't care. Tae-jin leaned back in his chair, thinking. We give them what they want, he said finally. What? Jae-sung looked shocked. Not my real network. A fake one. We create a trail that leads exactly where we want it to lead. Feed it to them through a controlled channel and make them think they've won. And Samira? Seo Yan asked. Samira gets written out of the story completely. As far as anyone knows, she was a dead end, not worth pursuing. Will they accept that? Samira asked. They will if I give them something bigger to chase. It took 2 weeks to set up. 2 weeks of carefully crafted misinformation, false trails, and strategic leaks. 2 weeks where Samira stayed in the hotel, working on her thesis, and trying not to think about the fact that this was almost over. That soon she'd go back to her real life, and Tae-jin would go back to his, and they'd become just another story neither of them talked about. On the final day, Tae-jin came to see her. It's done, he said. The buyer thinks they have what they need. They've already pulled their people out of Seoul. You're safe. Just like that? Just like that. Samira sat down on the edge of the bed. So, what happens now? Now you go home, back to your apartment, your classes, your life. And you? Back to my life. Will I see you again? Tae-jin looked at her for a long moment. Do you want to? Yes. Even knowing what I am. What I do. Yes. He crossed the room and sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. I meant what I said before, he said quietly. You deserve more than I can give you. What if I don't want more? What if I just want this? This isn't sustainable. Eventually someone will come after me, and you'll be collateral damage. I can't let that happen. So you're choosing for both of us. I'm choosing to keep you alive. Samira turned to face him. What if I told you that living without you doesn't feel like living at all? His expression cracked, just slightly. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Because it makes this harder. Good. It should be hard. Tae-jin reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers gentle. You're impossible, he said. I learned from you. He smiled, sad and real. I don't know how to do this, how to be with someone without destroying them. Then let me teach you something for once. What? That some things are worth the risk. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. For a second, he didn't move. Then his hand came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back, gentle and careful, like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, Both of them were breathing hard. "This is a terrible idea," he said. "Probably. You're going to regret it." "I doubt it." "I'm going to hurt you eventually." "Maybe. Or maybe I'll hurt you." "That's fair." Samira smiled. "So what do we do?" Tae-jin was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We try," he said finally. "We see if this can work, but slowly, carefully. And the second it becomes too dangerous for you, we stop. Deal?" "I'm serious, Samira. Your safety comes first." "I know." He kissed her forehead, soft and lingering. "You're going to be the death of me. Hopefully not literally. We'll see." 3 months later, Samira sat in her apartment, thesis notes spread across her tiny table, when her phone buzzed. "Dinner tonight. I found a place you'll like." She smiled. "What time?" 7. "I'll pick you up." "You mean Jae-sung will pick me up?" "Same thing." "It's really not. See you at 7. Samira put down her phone and looked around her apartment. It was still small, still cold, but somehow it felt different now. She had her visa extended, her thesis was almost finished, and she had job interviews lined up for after graduation. She also had a man who called her every night just to hear her voice, who sent Jae-sung to pick her up whenever she had to go anywhere after dark, who looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. It wasn't perfect. Tae-jin still had bad days where his world got dark and complicated. She still had moments where the fear crept back in, where she wondered if she'd made the right choice. But they were trying. That evening, Jae-sung showed up exactly at 7. "Where are we going?" she asked as she got in the car. "No idea. He just gave me an address." They drove to a quiet neighborhood in Hanam-dong and stopped in front of a small restaurant with warm lights in the windows. Tae-jin was waiting outside. He opened her car door and helped her out, his hand warm around hers. "What is this place?" she asked. "Ethiopian restaurant. Opened last month." Samira stopped walking. "You found an Ethiopian restaurant?" "You mentioned once that you missed the food from home. So I looked." Her throat felt tight. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you tell me." Inside, the restaurant smelled like Berber and injera, like her mother's kitchen, like home. They sat at a small table in the corner and ordered way too much food. "I have news," Tae-jin said as they ate. "Good news or bad news?" "Good, I think. Park Jin-woo is retiring, which means the people who wanted me to cut you out are losing influence. Does that make things easier for us?" "Significantly. So we can actually try this? For real?" He reached across the table and took her hand. "For real." Samira squeezed his fingers. "I'm still going to finish my degree, and I'm taking that job offer in Geneva if I get it." "I know. You'd be okay with that? Me leaving Seoul? I'd miss you, but I'd also be proud of you. And Geneva isn't that far. You'd visit?" "Every chance I got." She smiled. "This is really happening." "Apparently. Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Me too." "Good. That means we're taking it seriously." They finished dinner and walked along the river, Samira's hand in his, Jae-sung following at a discreet distance. "Can I ask you something?" Samira said. "Always." "That first night, when I showed up late and limping, what did you think?" Tae-jin was quiet for a moment. "I thought you were either very brave or very desperate." "Which one was I?" "Both. And that made you interesting." "Just interesting." "At first. Then you opened your mouth and corrected my understanding of supply-side economics, and I thought, this woman is going to ruin me." "Was I wrong about the economics?" "No. You were completely right. That's what made it worse." Samira laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "I'm glad I was late that day," she said. "So am I." They stopped walking, standing under a streetlight, the city glowing around them. "Samira," Tae-jin said. "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For not running, for choosing to stay, for making me believe that good things can happen to people like me." She stood on her toes, and kissed him, soft and sweet. "Thank you for noticing I was limping," she said, "and for caring enough to do something about it. I'll always care. Promise?" "Promise." They walked back to the car, and Jae-sung drove them through the city, and Samira thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, she'd been alone, scared, running out of options. Now she had a future, a purpose, and a man who looked at her like she'd hung the stars. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but maybe it was the life she'd needed. That night, when Tae-jin walked her to her apartment door, he kissed her goodbye like he always did. "See you Tuesday," she asked. "Tuesday at 7. Don't be late." "I'm never late anymore." "I know, it's disappointing." I liked flustered, apologetic Samira. "She still shows up sometimes." "Good." He kissed her once more, then waited until she was inside with the door locked before leaving. Samira leaned against the door and smiled. Her phone buzzed. "Sleep well." "You too." And Samira. "Yes?" "I love you." She stared at the message, her heart hammering. Then she typed back 3 words that felt like jumping off a cliff. "I love you too." His reply came instantly. "Good. Now I can sleep." Samira put her phone down and climbed into bed. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, she felt safe, seen, and for the first time in years, truly happy. The limp would never fully go away. The scars from her past would always be there. But she'd learned something important in these strange, terrifying, beautiful months. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the people who scare you the most are the ones who end up making you feel safest. And sometimes, when you're 12 minutes late and limping and absolutely certain your life is falling apart, you walk into a room and meet the person who's going to change everything. Samira closed her eyes and fell asleep smiling. And across the city, in an apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and shadows in every corner, Kwon Tae-jin did the same. If this story touched your heart, made you smile, or gave you all the butterflies, please subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment, and share this with someone who loves a good love story. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.